This is the most ruthless man I have ever met. She set up her wife to divorce her, set her up to cheat on her neighbor, put her through the worst criminal stoning law, and the woman was buried in a pit. The next moment, countless stones were pelting the woman. In no time at all, the woman falls in a pool of blood. But even more horrific than the stoning method, this is a film based on a true event. The woman's name was Soraya. She gave birth to 2 sons and 2 daughters to her husband. Soraya's husband was a minor local official. One day she takes a shine to the daughter of a condemned man. She makes a deal with the condemned man. She made a deal with him, then she could help her get out of there. But the condemned man didn't even think twice about it. The husband didn't want to keep 2 wives, so she did something. She did something that even an animal couldn't do. First she found her neighbor, and then threatened him with his position. If the neighbor didn't admit that she had given her wife to her, then her son would go straight to jail. The neighbor had no choice but to agree. Then she asks the neighbor to approach her wife on purpose. And so the conversation between the neighbor and his wife, and the planned physical contact, became evidence for the husband to accuse his wife of cheating on him. She then spread the word about her cheating in the village. Then she grabbed his wife and beat her up in the street, letting more people know about it. Soraya said her husband was slandering her, but the people around her didn't come to her aid. Instead, they ate the melons they had stolen. At night, her husband provoked her 2 sons, that your mother was cheating on you, Uncle Wong next door. As a result, the eldest son was successfully brainwashed. The older son was successfully brainwashed and spat angrily at his mother. Soraya couldn't believe it. She couldn't believe that her son had become like this. Soraya had no choice but to take her 2 daughters to her aunt's house. The next day the village chief and her husband found Soraya. In front of them, the husband accused his wife of cheating on the king next door. After a few words the mayor believed her, but Soraya denied it with all her might. But the mayor asks her to produce strong evidence. With the last few words of the old king next door, completely sat down the fact that Soraya had given him.
همیشه دراز میکشه. وقتی خانه ما هست همش میخواد دراز بکشه روی رخت خواب. شهر کوپای آقا شما برو تو کوچه ببین مردم زنا چی میگن به هم.
سریا 2 مرد عاقل و بالغ به تو اتهام میزنن که اعمال و رفتارت.
Then the village chief called a meeting with all the men of the village, and the outside was almost filled with villagers. They were all waiting for Soraya's show. Finally the door was opened. Out stepped Soraya's father. He declared his daughter guilty, and the punishment was a stoning sentence. Hearing this news, there was no sympathy from the villagers. Instead, there was much celebration. Then the men began to dig holes in the ground. Others picked up their favorite stones. The children were also very excited. Because the execution of the law that was to begin. It was a game for them. Here Soraya gave the necklace to her youngest daughter. The ring was given to the eldest daughter. The youngest son came to say goodbye to his mother. Soraya told her son that she had been wronged, but the eldest son pulled her away. At this moment Soraya could not stop crying. He didn't expect his older son to be so hostile to him. Then Soraya said to her aunt, "I'll take care of my 2 daughters from now on." And she promised him, when they were older, she would tell them the truth. Finally Soraya walked out the door. All the men cursed at him. Then Soraya stood in the middle. His aunt helped him to take off his veil. Underneath was a long, white, clean dress, for he wanted to be clean before he left. Clean and not as the common people say. Then he said,
شما چتون شده؟ انگار منو نمیشناسین. این همه به خونه هاتون اومدم. با هم سفره بودیم، دوست بودیم. چطور دلتون راضی میشه این کارو بکنیم؟ همسایه‌تون، مادرتون، دخترتون، زنت. چطور روتون میشه؟
2 men then tied Soraya's hands and buried him again with the lower half of his body. At this point, Soraya was further distressed by her father's 2 words.
این دختر من نیست دیگه. من پدرش نیستم من بعد. حضرت عباس تمومش کنیم بره.
Her husband's frame up, the son's lack of understanding, the father's indifference. Soraya's heart became even colder at that moment. Her aunt tried to stop them from doing so, only to be dragged away mercilessly. The father then threw a stone at him first. Again, the husband was already bleeding from 1 blow. Then came the 2 sons. Then countless stones were thrown from the villagers' hands. They threw stones at Soraya. Slowly Soraya was reduced to mush. Only then did they stop. Looking at the body of his wife, the husband could not help but laugh. Then he left the execution site satisfied. At last the eldest son, who had learned the truth, sat on the ground and wept in repentance. In the evening the husband took the villagers and started a party, while the aunt and a few others took Soraya's body. They were buried. That day a journalist came to the area to cover the story. The aunt risked her life. She told him what had happened to Soraya. All the conversations are on this tape. The journalist was about to leave with the tape, but the village chief stopped him. When the mayor destroyed the tape, he was willing to let the reporter go, but the aunt knew the mayor would do this, so she switched the tapes in the middle. Finally, the real tape was given to the journalist, and so the story of Soraya was reported. He was finally cleared of all wrongdoing, but the people who killed him did not. But those who killed him didn't get what they deserved. The blogger was outraged after watching the film. A shameless husband, a village chief who thinks he's fair, an indifferent father, an uninformed and ignorant crowd, a helpless Soraya, for the sake of so-called moral justice, to judge an innocent and helpless woman, and without any convincing evidence, on the word of her husband and her neighbor, and sentenced him to death.